Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech, we discuss all our exes. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
Great to be with you again on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, always free and available on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more, and new customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more hits. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan. Chris, great to be back with you once again, my man. We're getting closer to the weekend, and we'll get back to setting the hoops table coming up on tomorrow's episode as Grant McCaslin and the Red Raiders hit the road looking for a bounce back, and we will have hoops as a part of our conversation here today. We'll also get into a football category as we'll talk Big 12 playoff odds beginning to trickle out both in the league and nationally. We'll get to some of those where Texas Tech falls on that list, and also maybe something along the lines of Red Raider football that was noticed at United Supermarkets Arena a couple of nights ago. This may not be all that much of a secret, but we'll discuss some of the spring plans for one Micah Hudson. But let's begin in a basketball conversation, because something that maybe is not all that unique to Texas Tech, but sort of feels that way as far as the length of this list. Obviously, in this ease of player movement era, every program has got former players playing somewhere else that a fan may be looking at here or there and thinking, how could they help my team this year if they are still in red and black in our case? Now, again, how long the list is, maybe somewhat unique to Texas Tech or maybe not. But when we're talking about a Red Raider basketball team that is not all that deep, even when healthy, I think this kind of conversation has stood out to some Red Raider fans specifically here this year. We're talking about love lost. What's a good man going to do? We're talking transfer takebacks. Chris, I want to get into a list here today on some of those that are hooping elsewhere that really stand out to you as far as guys you would love to have back in red and black, and some that could really help your basketball team. I think there are some very obvious ones as far as just really good players, and then maybe some names that we'll mention that specifically could be complementary to this roster, given what it is or possibly isn't. So you kick it off here, man. Who are some of those that are standing out to you? And tell me in general how you feel about the length of Texas Tech's former player list, maybe compared to some others nationally. Do you think this is a unique thing for Texas Tech, or maybe something that is experienced fairly regularly in other locales?
This is a painful conversation. I mean, if we're this is the world we live in. This is part of the deal these days. I feel like you've got some guys that are maybe a little more high profile elsewhere than other schools do. That's what makes it maybe you a bit different than most. I don't know if the number is necessarily abnormal compared to what others would be dealing with, but I can list off, first of all, there's a couple of these guys that, maybe didn't want to leave, or that maybe it was good for them to leave. And so there's a different dynamic with each situation. Sure. And in some cases, you're going to be shocked at how far, because I try to keep this conversation with who's still playing college basketball right now that transferred out of here, that is doing well elsewhere, that I thought could, you would, I'd love to have, what they're doing for their team right now on this Red Raider team. It's kind of how I looked at it. And then people may view it differently, but, and obviously the two most high profile are Kevin McCullough and TJ Shannon. Those guys are, obviously Kevin McCullough is hurt right now. It's a big story up in Lawrence. I don't know if he's going to play anytime soon or the rest of this year. I really don't know, but there were times when he was player of the year type stuff, first team All-American, first team All Big 12, all that kind of stuff. He may have sat so much lately that a lot of that's going to go out the window, but I think when healthy, But and he needed to. He wanted to play more point guard, and I don't know if that was you were ever going to coexist. There were some people involved in his camp that are very outspoken, all that stuff. Who I would top this list though is a guy that I ultimately really didn't ever want to leave. I think maybe somebody near him wanted him to leave, and there was some things going on here with the previous coaching staff that it just. I don't know. It was unfortunate, but like TJ Shannon is a guy that I would say if you could give me a pick on a guy that, is out there and left here that I would put on your team right now, it's him, hands down. I think that he's plus about in every category. He's a big-time finisher, scorer, rebounder, defender, plus on size with what he could do, very versatile. You can switch him off onto whoever. He's averaging like 21 a game right now. Went for like 33 and 11 the other day for Illinois. I mean, and he's going to play professional basketball. That's where I would start. McCullough would obviously have helped you too. There's some semi-bad blood there. I don't think he regrets ever leaving here. That kind of is. But here's some other names for you that I think are maybe people have forgotten about or maybe didn't realize how good they're doing elsewhere. This is unfortunately a fairly lengthy list.
I may need a stiff drink before you run this down.
Well, yeah, because I think I'm going to list off a bunch of guys here that I think absolutely would either be playing heavy minutes for you or starting. Even when your team was healthy and currently constructed, they would be in the rotation or upgrades or whatever based on who they are right now. I'll start with the low end. Like even a guy like Malik Wilson at University of Houston, he would be playing for your team right now. He's not the flashiest guy on this list, but he's playing for the number one team in the country. He's a monster athlete. He's got, for a guard, he's long. He's a big-time defender. He's not going to help you much on the offensive end, but like on defense and in transition and just overall athleticism and length for a guard, he's playing for you. Maybe that would have altered your rotation, but I think I would take him right now because he would be. I mean, if he's good enough to play for Kelvin Sampson, the number one team in the country, he'd be good enough to play for you too. Right. And that's why they kind of. Couple years ago, they kind of just like escorted him out the door and was like, man, I just think we need a little bit more out of this and that. And I mean, the last time I saw him, he was doing a 360 dunk that actually didn't count because they called it a travel in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Or maybe it was the first round of the NCAA tournament. I mean, that's the last time we really have seen him in a Tech uniform. So there's one.
One of the most memorable dunks that never resulted in 2 points that I can recall.
So we have McCullough and Shannon, and there's Malik Wilson. But now let's get to some other names here. Because what ails you on your team right now, a lot of it is just bulk and size. You lack some scoring and rebounding and all these things. So I'll just give you the list of names. I'll let you try it on. We have people may forget about Big Russ Chiwa. He's playing for University of Georgia, all 7 foot, 270 pounds worth. He's averaging 8 and 7 in the SEC. Could use some of that. Yep. Okay. Big Vlad Goldine playing for FAU, went to the Final Four last year. All 7 foot of him. He's averaging 15 and 6. And he's been in a ton of block shots. Micah Peavy right here in our league. He's kind of been responsible for beating you one time already this year. Would be a plus defender on the wing. I think his girlfriend was going to TCU, and he's from the Metroplex, the Duncanville thing, and so maybe he has no regrets. But, I mean, would he be playing for you? Absolutely, he would be. And maybe TCU's best defender on a team in the upper tier of the Big 12 Conference. So he would be helping you. How about Chibuzo Agbo, a guy that I bet a lot of people have forgotten about, playing for Boise State. They're 20-8 on the year. Buzo is going for 14-5 a night on a really good basketball team. He's at 6'7", about 225. He would be helping you as well. Just score, rebound, do some different things. And then This would have been maybe because this one was so close to actually happening.
First, today's episode brought to you by eBay Motors. And eBay Motors has you covered with everything you need to maintain your vehicle and keep that ride or die ride on the road. Or if you're just looking to elevate your car's game to the next level of performance, they got what you're looking for with roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, superchargers, and accessories of all kinds to fit your style. Whether you're looking for speed, power, or design, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts to perfectly fit what you need. So just head over today to ebay.com/motors, where you're going to always find exactly what you're looking for, and with no risk because of eBay's guaranteed fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit just right every time, or your money back, keeping you burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to keep your ride or die ride on the road and moving your life forward at ebay.com/motors. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers, eligible items only, exclusions do apply.
This would have been maybe because this one was so close to actually happening. And I think that they were desperately trying to make it happen. And I just think enough people got in his ear and did a good job of recruiting him and saying, you don't want to start all over with a new staff. Come work, come be a part of some guys that you already know. And so Talvin Hester and Louisiana Tech swooped in and took Daniel Bacho from you because I think they were working to try to keep him here and really get on the same page and all the things. And then just lo and behold, one day he's like, hey, coach, I'm going to Louisiana Tech. Okay. And so you're out. You're of a center.
Did this have anything to do with an APB on his cat? Did somebody say, hey, down here in Ruston or wherever it is, got an APB?
I mean, because Bacho had a lot of quirks. I think that he didn't play his best ball last year after he got hurt and then kind of sick.
Yep.
And then I think the whole Fardaws thing and just the mess that the team was last year. And it's almost like he got doghoused a bit and he just was never the same. When that kid is right and in rhythm and all that, there may not be a more talented kid on the list other than like the Shannons and the McCullers. But he's averaging 14 and 10 at La Tech and just working people. And granted, much lesser level. Yeah. But again, just imagine having one of these other bigs either backing up Warren, starting in place of Warren. You can play with him with Warren. I mean, all the stuff. And it's like, and then all of a sudden you start talking about you're one of the, the biggest teams in the league. I mean, with one addition, with a lot of post minutes to go around and some foul trouble to give and all the stuff. And it's because the list that we're given here, these are guys that are playing really well.
Yeah.
They're older. They're playing really well. They're putting up numbers on good teams. One of them is on the number one team in the country. One of them is on the top half team in the Big 12 Conference. One of them was on a Final Four team last year. One of them is on a 28 team, and he has a lot to do with that. TJ had that hiccup with the legal situation and the case that was dropped, and so missed some time. But he's averaging 21 a game. That is very difficult to do in college basketball. I mean, Pop's your leading scorer right now, averaging 15 a game. Yeah. And a lot of what I'm giving you here is averaging 14 or whatever, but TJ's averaging 21. I mean, so consistently. And so it's just, I mean, any one of these guys, you put them in your rotation, it's either an immediate upgrade or a starter or whatever. But yeah, you've had and there's some others out there too. Like, I mean, you had Tyreek Smith that's playing at SMU now. He left you years ago. I mean, he could be a wing. He'd be better than probably better than what Jennings or Kyron Lindsey are doing. Is he's older, better version of that. I mean, there's just there's a lengthy list. Namari Burnett still playing. You've already beaten him though this year as he went from Tech to Bama, then now to Michigan, and Michigan's a disaster. But there's just so many guys that are out there in the ether that have played for you that are doing really well. But those kind of highlight some of them. And I may have missed a few, but I thought this was kind of the list I would present to you and say, I mean, there's some dudes out there that played here at one time that are getting it done. And, whew, yeah, it's kind of hard to stomach a little bit. When you see injured you are and depleted you are, small you are, how thin you are, I mean, all the stuff, there's some guys out there that are transferred from Texas Tech, listed next to their name out there. So
yeah, I think maybe a little bit unique to Texas Tech as far as the depth of the list, because of obviously the coaching changes that you have gone through. And it's sort of staggering still to even imagine that you may wind up back in the NCAA tournament, knock on wood, this season, given what you have gone through with your head coach and your staff over the last couple of transition periods. I mean, clearly, and TJ Shannon was one of my favorite Red Raiders when he was a Red Raider. I love a guy that hates a basketball rim so much that he wants to tear everyone in every gym down all across America. He was a walking tomahawk. So I think he'd probably be number one on my list, has really become a very, very productive player, probably going to wind up maybe on some All-American lists here or there. McCullough obviously did some impactful things for you as well. I'm more so as a fan, just in a complimentary kind of mindset, like what could this roster really use? I mean, who couldn't use a Shannon? Who couldn't use a McCullough? That's a foregone conclusion. But the list of big men that you're running down, and granted some of them in whatever, smaller leagues or less competitive leagues that they're playing in, putting up numbers that you've cited there. I think Vlad Golden was probably the guy that I was thinking of first, just because we got to see him on such a big stage as far as the NCAA tournament a year ago. I really had kind of forgotten about Chewa, but certainly that size is something I'd love to have back in the mix. And Daniel Bacho, I mean, I was one of those inflicted with Bacho fever whenever the season tipped off a year ago, and he was living up to some of that, and then obviously had the path that you described there that kept him from really seeing that through. But probably some of those big men are the ones that would be at the top of my list. I may just go with Vlad Golden if I had to pick only one.
And I'll say this about TJ. I'll always have a soft spot for that kid and always root for him because, again, he reached out to me a couple of months ago on a social media platform and just was watching one of the broadcasts. And, he still pays attention. He still talks to people in Lubbock, and he's still got some friends here and things like that. But I won't forget him coming back here this past summer. He kind of snuck into town around that TBT time when a lot of former players were around. And he told me that he did this, but then I had other people tell me that he did the same thing. And so I had no reason to doubt that it actually happened, but it went a long way with me. And he said, or I had been told, and then TJ kind of talked to me about it too, but he told all the current players on this team, don't ever leave here, man. Don't ever leave here. You'll regret it. They're going to treat you great here. The people are going to love you. They say what they're going to do. I mean, he didn't barely know Grant. He just talking about the community and just the administration and the school. And I've just always, and I'll root for TJ Shannon no matter what, because I think he's a good-hearted kid, and I think some people around him wanted him closer to home. But anyway,
sure.
Yeah, but the dude can go. Yeah, and so
let us hear from you in the YouTube comments. Who would be at the top of your list if you could take back only one to add to this year's squad? What name would you go with? You're giving me like visions of Billy Madison squeezing that chubby kid's cheeks saying, "Don't you ever say that," when he says, "I can't wait to go to high school. Stay here as long as you can." All right. Hopefully this is something that will kind of fade as the years go on, and maybe you have some stability with your coaching staff. You'll always have some transfers. I don't have any doubt about that as far as this era is concerned, but hopefully the list of impactful players will lessen as the years roll by.
And Calvin, I would say this too. I think with what you've added, I mean, like, I wouldn't want to trade Darian Williams or Chance McMillan. Sure. Some of what you've added here, I think I think you've hit, obviously Warren and Joe are 1-year deals. And so it's not like you can get them back, but I think the guys that you brought in here that have multiple years, I hope that you can hold on to them, because I think you struck gold with two of those kids in particular.
Well, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. The success rate for Grant McCaslin and those he was able to get here through this first go-around was obviously very high. I don't know, what miss was really out there. They've been impactful as far as those that showed up post Grant McCaslin's arrival, but some things to regret. And, of course, a lot of these guys we're talking about, you think, well, Texas Tech got the worst versions of them as they were very young or rookies on this level, and now they've developed into these impact players elsewhere. C'est la vie. What are you going to do? What are we going to do? We'll switch gears to wrap up our conversation. Let's finish it in a football category, Chris, and I want to start with Micah Hudson. First, today's episode brought to you by FanDuel, and the sports calendar keeps turning and the action never stops with America's #1 sportsbook and the official sportsbook of Locked On. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet hits. There are so many ways to spice up any action with their safe, secure, and easy-to-use app. So get to FanDuel.com/lockedon. And if you're a new customer, take advantage of $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet with FanDuel at FanDuel.com/lockedon, official partner of the NBA. And I want to start with Micah Hudson, 5-star wide receiver who will join the Red Raiders, who has joined the Red Raiders, but join them on the field, obviously, next fall. And I say that specifically because he will not be joining them on the field in the spring. I know that there was already some knowledge. This is not like some big secret, some knowledge that he's had some procedures or a procedure since he wound up on campus, but it was not going unnoticed at the UT game a couple of nights ago that he was either in a brace or on crutches or maybe both, and some confirmation that he is not going to be participating in spring camp. So where's our freak out level with this? And by the way, again, this is a freshman pass catcher, but as highly rated as far as recruiting rankings are concerned as anyone you've ever got to join the program. So pardon us if we pay a little bit more attention to what's going on with him prior to his first game as a Red Raider. But where are we as far as kind of understanding the impact of this, or maybe what the timeline is going to look like for Micah Hudson?
Yeah, I think Texas Tech was well aware of, he had a minor knee issue. I think that, that's partly why, if you remember back in that All-Star game that he played in, and it was like light practice and didn't play a lot, that was partly why. And this was, he's had a knee procedure. It was a minor thing, but it was just something they needed to go like kind of clean up something. And so I think everybody was aware of it, on board with it, and like, hey, let's go ahead and get this done kind of thing. What I hate is, there's no freak out or anything, but does it put him behind a little bit? I mean, sure, like where he can't, start practicing and do some of the things that you benefit from in the spring. I really hate it for those of us that could watch spring practice or watch a red and black game or whatever, because I just was kind of just curious as much as anything on what it would look like. But we won't get to see that, as they'll be really smart with him and, bring him back when, I think he's going to be in a brace or on crutches for another month or few weeks or whatever it is, and they'll just kind of ramp him back up. But with the rules now, you can do so much in the summer on the field and all those things. And that's the thing about Micah. He's different. And like, I don't worry about him coming back less than. He'll probably come back better than he was before. But yeah, it's gonna create some headlines just because of who he is and how highly heralded he was. That he's missed this or that. But it was a minor situation. The procedure was done several weeks ago. I think it was minor in as far as that goes, and just kind of a cleanup more than anything, and just trying to get him right so he's ready for the real thing. But yeah, it kind of sucks. I mean, I hate it for him, but then I hate it for us too, and just fans in general, for not getting to be able to see him participate whenever you would be able to do that in the spring.
Well, and I mean, reps are reps. There are only so many of them to take before the lights come on, and it's real. So I don't care how talented you are. I don't think anybody wants to miss out on those kinds of things. So unfortunate that we won't get to have those for him, or he won't get to have those for himself within spring camp, but hoping to see that back in good shape by the time we get to fall camp. And speaking of the fall, beginning to trickle out from the ether, college football playoff odds. And I was curious, as we get into this new Big 12 era, we had a new era a season ago. Now we got a new era. As you've got UT and Oklahoma no longer in the picture, and you've got the Pac-12 orphans coming on over to play ball. And at the top of the list from a Big 12 perspective, it's a remainder. It's a Hateful Eight member. The Kansas State Wildcats are number one. Utah, Kansas, Arizona, Texas Tech round out the top five. Texas Tech, as far as the national list was concerned, was going to be number 24 as far as these odds go. Look, if you're a lifelong Red Raider, you can certainly remain on a believe it when you see it status. I'm in that category, and I understand. But I really think as far as the new era is concerned, I've been very interested, Chris, and will remain the same way when we get into like preseason top 25 rankings, things like that. Really interested to see who among those new members are going to be near the top. And Utah, Arizona representing that there. Just for curiosity's sake, Central Florida right behind Texas Tech as far as the Big 12 is concerned. And the Kansas Jayhawks, you got a pair of Kansas members near the top there, including Kansas, whose head coach has, I don't know if it's a new contract. I don't think we had years added to it, but he's got more cash coming his way there for Lance Leipold. So I was kind of interested to see that in the mix as well. What did you make of some of these mentions?
I make mention of the Kansas contract announcement, the fact that they purposely announce it after they lose to BYU at home. That's what I make of that. They're PR 101, man.
That's right.
That didn't just happen. But anyway, I got a kick out of that part. 19-game home winning streak snapped. Hey, but we got a big football contract to announce. There's no years. We're just giving the guy more money, but let's celebrate. We've invested more in football. Okay, so yeah, we get this list from one of the betting websites that these get emailed around, and it's got the playoff odds, as you mentioned. It's got Big 12 odds and all those things. But what was fascinating, because I mean, this is Vegas. This is basically odds makers setting this. This is their expertise. These are like over/under win totals. It doesn't, it can be wrong, but it gives you a good idea. And that's why I always like to look at it as a barometer kind of for what expectations are, what certain experts think. Odds are placed on there to kind of create even action and all those kinds of things. But it does give you a pecking order. And that's what I was fascinated to see. As it relates to like the list for the odds to qualify for the 12-team playoff. And again, I think you kind of purse through there, and they're the same when you take them out and stack them up just from a Big 12 in general standpoint. But it's Kansas State, it's Utah, it's Arizona, and Kansas are the only schools above Texas Tech in these odds. What is fascinating about the way that sets up is there's 4 schools listed above you. You only play one of them in the regular season. That's the first thing I looked at. And then I think you're very smart to point out UCF as being right behind Texas Tech, who you also don't play. And so I think that's partly why that factors into why the Red Raiders odds are where they are. Let's just call it what it is. I mean, you don't play either Kansas school or Utah or UCF, which I think a lot of people feel like Kansas State or Utah are going to be kind of one of the two will be a favorite. It was interesting to me that Oklahoma State wasn't more represented on some of these lists as far as odds go, based on your quarterback comes back, all 5 starters in the offensive line coming back, and maybe the best running back in the country coming back in Ollie Gordon. But for whatever reason, they don't like their schedule or what they bring back on defense, or don't trust Alan Bowman, whatever. I'm not sure. Or we don't want to place it all on a running back coming back. What if he gets dinged up? I don't know how they come to this, but that's how I looked at it from a Texas Tech standpoint. But it's kind of a list of teams that not on your schedule. And so, that's why I think there's some excitement about your season. You also may not have much margin for error because you don't get to play some of these teams, and you better take care of business with a lot of these home games and all that stuff. But that was kind of my takeaway on looking at this.
Yeah, Oklahoma State number 8 as far as the Big 12 list is concerned. And you're mentioning all the things that they would seemingly have going for them there. And we didn't even mention the head coach, who may be the best in the Big 12 conference. So I would never underestimate what Mike Gundy is able to pull out of the hat. But yeah, that's, as we've talked about before, a new experience as far as preparing for a season or kind of generating some expectations in the Big 12 conference. Who are you avoiding? Who are you getting? Not something we ever had to really consider, obviously, in years prior when you were getting just about anybody and everybody, even in some previous scheduling iterations. So looking forward to that. Yes, it is. Don't check the calendar, only February, but football fits in every month of the year on Locked On Texas Tech.
Well, it's the last day of February.
That's right.
Yep. This is it. This is that one extra day that we get, kind of that weird, the 29th or whatever it is.
That's right. Happy birthday to all those who are leap year babies, and you may be 65 but only turning 18, or however that math works out. It is not a requirement to understand that to be a part of the Locked On Texas Tech family. Chris, appreciate the time as always, my man, and we'll wrap up the week getting back to hoops on the other side. Looking forward to it.
Yes, looking forward to it. We'll kind of maybe tomorrow we talk obviously about the big game against West Virginia that you've got trying to bounce back, as you mentioned. We can kind of lay the land of your resume a little bit, what the Big 12 tournament would look like. There's all kinds of dynamics here that are going to start to move quite a bit based on very few opportunities left as you're really close to postseason. So anyway, but yeah, a lot to get into. I have still, seething about the events from the other night, but I'll process those and continue to, do my thing and try to work on that on my own time. But yeah, still painful. I still don't like number 30 on the other team. Not a fan. You're a dirty bird. You are. Anyways, but keep hope alive, everybody. Enjoy your Thursday, and we'll talk to you in the morning.
May not be seething as much as the guy that had to wake up the following day and post bail. So I don't know. Consider that perspective. I imagine. Hey, we're going to get over it. Being a Red Raider fan is not for the faint-hearted. This ain't our first rodeo. We shall continue on. And hopefully you'll do it with us right back here on Locked On Texas Tech tomorrow. Thanks for being out there, and hope you'll be subscribed on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts so you never miss an episode. And we'll see you back here for the next round on Locked On Texas Tech.